Hello, hello. Welcome to my second and updated Solo Tob guide. As the meta has changed with new items and upgrades, it's about time I make a new one going over the new gear setups and strategies that are used nowadays. Note that this guide is not made for people who have never done TOB before. This assumes that you obviously know everything, how the raid works and everything like that in the team setting. About a month ago, Jagex added an update that changed Solo Tob completely, allowing us to do P2 Vertic a lot quicker, and without having to tiki it as we previously did. This saves a bunch of time and money every single run. Vertic P2 now only spawns one red healing crab, rather than what she used to was 2. And her zap damage only does about 10 to 14 damage instead of 45 to 50. This makes Solo Tob actually a really good money making method, earning just about 10 to 11 mil, depending on how much you dive, per hour, if you can complete one per hour. Once you get faster, it ends up being one of the best money makers in the game, so there's a lot more incentive to do it now than it used to be. The first things I want to go over is the importance of certain plugins and settings. Ground markers will make your life significantly easier in Tob as you want to stand in specific tiles. Entity hider is to remove def animations, can be very helpful, especially in Nalika's room. NPC indicator is also very huge, especially for bloat, because it allows you to determine exactly where you need to stand when he stomps, and also helps you avoid him through the wall. There's a plugin called TOB which just has a bunch of tools that makes TOB a lot nicer, such as timers and HP plugins. Here are the setups I would recommend. I will link this in the description if you want to look more closely. Blood Fury is probably the most single biggest upgrade you can get other than Scythe itself, so I would always recommend using that over Torture or anything else. I'll highly recommend that you would go for the first shown setup in the picture, as it gives you the most amount of supplies without sacrificing too much gear. Obviously doing Solo Tobs is expensive and it requires a lot of gear. You can theoretically do Solo Tobs with very cheap setups. The bottom right one is what I would recommend as the cheapest possible one, where it's still worth running Solo Tobs. Scythe is pretty much needed for this. You can do it without, but it's very slow and it's not worth it. If you find rooms like Nalika's a struggle, I would recommend bringing an Ellie and a Phoenix necklace to highly increase chance of survival. Locator Orb is not really necessary, but learning how to use it is very useful for fast runs and using significantly less brews overall. But for someone who's just learning this, it will probably hurt you more than it will help you. So I would recommend staying away from it until you've at least done a couple of runs and you want to go faster and faster. I also don't have the smithing level, by the way, so in the picture it'll show the normal ward. Obviously bring the better ward, the fortified one, if you can, but the regular one is perfectly fine too. Lightbearer is an item you can consider bringing, as it speeds up Sodiseg in case you miss hammers, and also it speeds up Verzik P1 quite a lot. But it's not needed, so having an extra brew or a restore is probably more worth it. So the first thing you want to do is obviously pre-pot everything you can, then drop a salve and equip your T-bow. Make sure your quick prayers are set to Piety and Mage Prayer, as that's the most useful throughout the run. When you enter Maiden, make sure you put on Rigor and your T-bow, and you want to shoot her as you run in. And you want to hammer Maiden twice immediately. The idea with Maiden is that you want to make sure your Twisted Bow is equipped at her time of attack. She has a chance of draining your attack, and she drains the highest that you have equipped. So if you have your T-bow equipped on her attack, she will drain your range level instead. Obviously you don't care about range levels because you're doing melee only pretty much. So you want to try and put your T-bow on at the same time as she attacks. Maiden attacks on a 10-tick cycle, meaning you can always get 2 scythe hits and then 1 T-bow flick in between every single time. Once you get close to 70%, make sure you equip all your mage gear and get ready to freeze. Sometimes you'll get a 1 and 2 spawn or a 1 and 1 spawn and you actually can't freeze all of them, but there are methods where you can actually stand far away and T-bow to proc the 70% spawns instead, which actually allows you to get the freeze on 1 and 2 every single time. With a noob beginner setup, I would actually recommend just brewing up. There are methods where you can use Locator Orb, you can use Redemption at the end of Maiden. I wouldn't really recommend doing this in a beginner run, as you can just use your brews, you have so much to use. Just heal up. But try to obviously heal up to all the way to full before you use any more super combats, because you don't have infinite super combat. I think at absolute most you want to use up to like 2 brews. Less is obviously better, but if you use up to like 2 brews, it's probably fine to continue. If you end up using way too much, then just reset instead. You can also blood barrage the crabs if they are stacked up together. That doesn't always happen, of course, generally speaking. But you definitely want to try and kill the crabs every single time. Don't leave them at 1 HP, because every time you leave the crabs at 1 HP, they will actually gain about 1 point, or Maiden will gain about 1.8 max hit every time. So it's ideal to kill the crabs every single time, even if they're only 1 HP. Also make sure to dodge blood. If you step 4 tiles to the side every single time she throws out blood, you will never get hit by them. So it's a good practice to just move far enough away every time she can throw blood, as then you will never get hit by blood. If you get hit by blood, it obviously drains your prayer and your HP, and also has a chance, or way higher chance of spawning blood spawns, which you definitely don't want because they are very annoying. Normally this room takes about 4 to 5 minutes depending on RNG. Make sure at the end of the kill, before she dies, to redivine as you're running towards the gate again, as you'll get that HP back anyways. When it comes to bloat, there's not really much that I can talk about, as it's pretty much one of the easiest rooms. It's pretty much just an easier version of team bloat, so there's not really much that I need to tell you here. Obviously use your specs, make sure your HP is high, don't die here, just take your time. It's about 5 minutes a room. The Divine Potion you sipped at the end of Maiden should last throughout the entirety of bloat. If it has ran out at the end of bloat, or like right before bloat is dead, just kill him without a potion, honestly. It's not really worth using a potion here. Just save your supplies. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to tiki bloat stomp because you're too late or because you want to get an extra hit in, it's a very easy timing. As soon as he stomps the floor and makes a sound, that's when you click the suite. Very easy. There are a bunch of flinch spots where you can use a Crystal Halley where you can flinch and get a lot of extra hits in, but I'm not really going to go over that here because it's not really necessary, and it's more like a speed strat, but that is a thing you can do. After bloat is dead, drop your Salve Amulet and go buy at least 2, maybe 3 shards, depending on how much inventory space you have, as they will be very, very useful in the next room. So for the Malekith's room, I would highly recommend you copy my tiles that I have marked right here. The ones in the middle are going to be very useful for the conga line setup, and the ones on the pillars are there to show that if you barrage those, it'll actually prioritize the ones around the corner at the same time, so you can actually barrage up to 3 Nylos. But that's not that important, but it's still a very nice tip to have anyways. All my tile markers will be in the description on a paste bin. Before entering Nylo, make sure you Divine Potion. To complete Nylo, the main thing you need to focus on is to make sure that 1 pillar is remaining, because you're probably going to lose all 3, which is fine, that's pretty normal. Sometimes you can save 2. Generally speaking, you want to make sure 1 pillar stays alive, and I would recommend trying to keep the northwest pillar alive, as that's the one that takes the least amount of damage on average. So try and prioritize that pillar. If there's a lot of Nylos on it, make sure you ice barrage it or kill whatever's on it. The second most important thing about Nylo is to keep your HP really high. Yes, I know it sounds dumb, but it's actually a very useful tip. Keep your HP high, blood barrage whenever you can. If your HP is not at 99, use blood barrage instead of ice barrage, and you can use it on any Nylo, but obviously you don't want to make it so you can't kill anything. In the early stages of Nylo room, you want to try and blow pep as much as possible. Blow pep is the best weapon in Nylo, as it's the fastest weapon, so always prioritize killing the rangers early on. But the most important thing is to kill the aggros. Whatever's attacking you is the things you have to kill first. Don't worry about the pillars as much, worry more about things that is attacking you and making your HP lower. And try to remember where to pray and when to pray. I would also highly recommend you download a plugin called the Nyloware. That's the plugin that shows you all those numbers on the Nylo. The numbers mean what spawn they are. And what's important is to always make sure you kill whatever's new. If you see a lower number, you don't have to prioritize that one as much. Obviously that means that's going to pop soon. If you see a very low number, it's probably going to pop very soon, so stay away from it. Generally speaking, you want to be placed in the middle of the room, because that'll make it so you don't get hit by the explosions as much. It'll reduce damage drastically. On wave 20 is when the cap actually increases from 12 to 24, but I would actually recommend you forcefully stall before this, so you can keep your HP really high, and you can get prepared for the end part. You're not trying to go fast there, you're trying to obviously make sure you're staying alive. Make sure obviously northwest pillar is safe. And during around wave 16, 17, 18, try and like kill as many bigs as possible. Like you might think that's a dumb idea, but it's a good idea because you can actually forcefully stall so it doesn't spawn the next wave, and you can sit there and kind of heal up with blood rush for a little bit and then get ready for the next waves after that. And it also makes it so you don't stall accidentally when you're doing the conga line, which is one of the most important parts of the run. So when wave 20 spawns, this is where you're going to get ready to set up the conga line. What I normally do is I kill a melee or two, make sure to kill the south melee, because that's an aggro, it's going to hit you, and then get ready to blowpipe a couple of the aggros that are coming up. It's going to be one coming from the west that you want to blowpipe and kill, and the east I mean, sorry. And you want to kill the little melee that comes from the south as well. After you kill that one, stay on the first tile as shown in the screenshot here, or in the video, and then freeze this Nilo once the 23rd one on the south there enters. After that, you freeze, just wait a little bit, just stick around, just freeze some pillars, try and blob barrage if you're low HP, and then run down to this tile here and freeze this one. And after that, you want to kill this melee, and if you do this properly, it's set up. As you can see, there's a big conga line here. This actually saves you a ton of damage. You won't take as much damage. So here I'm going to show you another example of the conga line. So again, you kill the two aggros that are hitting you. You stand in the first spot, shown in the video here, and you freeze this one just around when the south Nilo comes down, the 23rd one. And then you step under it after you've frozen it. After that, you ice barrage and you blood barrage to heal up. And just wait for the left one to come in. Right after the left one melees you once, and then you freeze the other one a couple of ticks after it attacks you as well. Then you kill the last 25th melee aggro and the 26th major that follows right after it. And then you step north next to the gate and you get ready for the end. After conga line is set up, you want to try and kill all the rest of the aggros, and then you want to make sure your HP is really high again. Put on your P-neck. This is the time you need to put on your P-neck, because after this, pillars are going to start falling, and you're going to spam blood barrage on the biggest piles you can see. Don't worry about northwest now. If you've protected northwest enough, you shouldn't have to worry about that for the rest of the run. If it's low HP, you're going to have to ice barrage it a little bit to save it, but it should be really high HP at this point. So at this point, you want to run around in circles, pray magic and augury, and have your Torva on, but keep your mage gear on, but just put Torva top and legs on. You run around in circles and you blood barrage everything. It's going to heal your crazy amount. The sharks are to obviously combo eat once the pillars fall down. As you know, you're going to take a lot of damage. Sometimes you get stalled. Well, you do get stalled when the pillars fall down, and the Niles can explode at the same time, which can result in death very easily. The Pinnacle can save you here pretty often, so I would just recommend camping the Pinnacle at the rest, well, until it's done, and then just spam blood barrage. After it's done, brew up a little bit so you don't start Nihilicking with 1 HP, and make sure to get another Divine Pot ready as well. Once the Nihilicking spawns, you want to claw them out and all that at the start, and then you want to get into a cycle that is 2-to-1, where you hit Nilo twice and it'll hit you once only. To get into this cycle, all you have to do is click one tick after it attacks you or moves. Both work. If you're stepping under it, you'll see it move. If you click as soon as you see it move, you'll be in cycle immediately, or if it attacks you. And if you keep that cycle, so a 5-tick cycle, you will always get 2 hits while it only gets 1. If you do this method correctly, you pretty much don't need any healing. You don't have to brew at all. Blood barrage and blood fear will always out heal the damage the boss will do. Next up is Soda's Egg. Soda's Egg is probably the second easiest room. First thing you do to Soda's Egg is you want to spec him once every single phase. And something you need to know about Soda's Egg is every 10th mage hit, he will shoot out the red ball. If you stay in melee range, he won't mage you, therefore it'll delay the red ball. Which you should do at the start because it saves some time and it stops you from having to tick it so early on. Now, you're going to have to tick it at some point because it's going to shoot out the ball. It's going to do 70 damage every time. After the first tick eat, you need to step away from the boss and start flinching him. Put Mage Prayer on. It's only going to shoot Mage Orbs, you won't do any range orbs because there's no player to split in between. So this room actually is really easy. The timing to tick eat the bomb is very simple. You just simply wait for him to do 2 head bobs. You'll see him shoot out the red ball, and then on the second head bob right there is when you want to click the tick eat. It's super simple, never fails. Don't look at the ball, look at the boss instead. If you're low on prayer and you want to save some prayer, you can use your quick prayers here to click on the quick prayers right after the orbs hit you, so you can almost do this room without any prayer usage at all. But then generally speaking, you should have enough, but it's pretty useful to try and prayer flick if you can. At the end of Solo Tob, you want to try and end up with at least one full divine and one full regular super combat. So any excess potions you can just use here. Before going into the mace, make sure that you are above 3 HP. Because the mace, when you're inside of it, it can actually do it does about 1 to 3 damage every like 7 or 8 game ticks or so. So make sure you speed up and be like at least 4 HP before going into the mace. You want to spam sweet so you don't die to the mace, because that can happen. So for the mace, all you need to do is you just take a screenshot of the mace, and then you just use that screenshot to either guide yourself through the mace with my tiles that I've linked in the description if you want to use those tiles. I simply use those as a reference to go through the maze quickly. This is a lot quicker than having to mark the tiles every single time individually. But if this is your first run, I would just recommend using either the brush tool to instantly mark the tiles as you see on the screenshot. If you make mistakes on the maze, you can ticket those by quickly eating a sweet. If you only make one mistake, they do 16 damage every single time you make a mistake on the maze, but take your time here, don't try and rush it, because it's not really worth going quick. After Solo Tob is dead, you want to look at your super combats, and as I said earlier, you only need one full divine and one full regular one. So if you have a 1 dose or a 2 dose extra, I would just recommend dropping them to get more supplies instead. Going into Verzik, I would highly recommend, as a learner, you at least take 4 to 5 brews going into Verzik if you don't have Locator Orb. 5 is a little bit safer, but 4 will be enough if you play it correctly. So take at least 4. And you want at least 2 restores to compensate for the brews. 3 obviously better, but 2 is enough. You do not need a stamina, as you have sweets, so you can just use those on Verzik. And then you want to fill up your inventory with full of just prayer potions after that. So you're going to get like a good 7, 8, 9 prayer pots. As many as you can get. The more, the better. And then before heading into Zarpus, make sure your quick prayers are now set to Piety plus Redemption. The main idea to complete Zarpus is to make sure you try and fill as many squares on the floor as possible before you're going to have to start stepping under. On Zarpus, you have to do a method called stepping under, where obviously you step under instead of stepping backwards. It's the exact same timing as you would with normal scythe walk. I assume you know how to do that, because there's no way you're going to do this without doing that. So instead of running back, you run under on the same timing. Instead, it's going to throw some pebbles at you. So you're going to take some damage. Obviously your Blood Fury is going to be very helpful here with making you survive Zarpus for a little bit longer. Once your HP goes low enough, you're going to proc your Redemption with it, and you're going to keep drinking Prayer Potions while you stay in the cycle. This is something that is going to take a little bit of practice, but I would highly recommend checking out Entry Mode Tob before attempting this in an actual run. Entry Mode is extremely overpowered, and I highly recommend you go and learn it there first. So for Zarpus, there's a lot of methods where you can actually like utilize all the tiles in the room if you want to, with back tiling. For a first completion, you don't really need to do that. You can consistently clear Solo Tob, no problem, without doing any back tiling. If you have enough prayer potions, if you hit hammers and all that, it won't be a problem. Doing back tiling is very helpful though for saving a lot of prayer. If you're doing like setups with like very little prayer, then it might be useful to learn that, but I don't think it's necessary for the first runs. Instead, what I would recommend you doing is just simply stepping under at the start to like reduce some health. You have 99 hit points at the start, so it is valuable to use your Blood Fury essentially, because if you lower your HP at the start, your Blood Fury can heal you while you're doing the normal scythe walk, right? So let's say you step under until like 40 HP, you can then do the normal scythe running, no back tiling, just do normal scythe run around the room, just like you would in a team raid. And then you're going to slowly heal up with Blood Fury, and then you can start stepping under again, and you essentially get some HP for free. So it's pretty ideal to do that early on. Once you are out of tiles to use though, you want to start stepping under. And as I said earlier, it's the exact same timing as stepping back. There's no difference. You step under, you click the boss. You step under, you click the boss. The exact same instead of flicking back. Once you're low enough HP and it's going to proc your redemptions, the right play is to click underneath the boss, then click the prayer potion, then click the boss, and then click the prayer orb, and repeat this cycle over and over. This might need some practicing, but it's not too difficult to do. Keep in mind that sometimes if your prayer is on, it's going to stay on even though you lose your prayer, so you're going to have to double click it after you repot early. So keep in mind sometimes you have to double click the prayer orb. If you're ever done Vespula in a solo chambers, for example, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the same. It's pretty much the same thing. Once these creatures, just take your time and don't do anything risky. To understand how backtiling works in Zarpus, you need to understand how there's cycles with the scythe. It being a 5-tick, Zarpus being 4-tick, it doesn't match correctly. You start off with the cycle 1, you hit 1 tick after Zarpus. Then cycle 2, you hit 2 ticks after Zarpus. Then cycle 3, you hit 3 ticks after Zarpus. And then cycle 4. This is where you actually can't hit, because if you attack Zarpus at this point, you're going to rag a tile. This is what we know, or what we call as 5-ticking, but we're not going to do that here. Instead, you're just going to walk back and lose a tick on purpose, essentially. So the general idea is, on cycle 1 and 2, you can do backtiling 2 times. So on cycle 1 and cycle 2. And then cycle 3 and cycle 4, you can only go back 2 times. And then you repeat. Cycle 1, you run all the way back. Cycle 2, you run all the way back. Cycle 3, you only do 2 steps back. And cycle 4, you also do 2 steps back. And then it resets to cycle 1 again. You can then do backtiling again. Before you start Berserk, make sure you download my tile markers and you copy paste them in, because you're going to need them for Berserk. It's very important. For Berserk P1, there's not really much that I need to explain. Just sit behind a pillar and use your Dawnbringer. If you want to do it a little bit faster, you can use a Scythe with the noob setup. It's slightly faster to use a Scythe, but it's pretty much the same. You can just sit behind a pillar and camp Dawnbringer. This part is completely free. Just wait for your specs and take your time. Before starting P2, make sure you have Pot of the Divine and you have Piety on. Make sure you're standing specifically in these tiles here, and of course you need to have the tile markers. When the Nilos spawn, you just have to run into it, like so, and run to this tile over here to be safe from the detonation. You simply click on a tile that is marked north, and then you click on the other tile far east as soon as she attacks at the same time. And after you've run to that spot, you run back towards the purple crab, and you kill it with the blowpipe, and then get back into cycle. Since this is your first time doing this, I would recommend praying range and piety here in case you make mistakes, so you don't instantly wipe. Although if you are low in prayer, I would recommend not doing that. At the end of P2, you're going to be very low HP, and what you're going to do is you're going to start using Redemption and try and force Redemption by either using a Locator Orb, or by Sweet Tick Eating with Redemption on. This will also force it. Let's say if you're 10 HP, you can't tank a Zap, you'll just Tick Eat with Redemption on with the Sweet when she zaps you. She zaps you every 5 hits, by the way, every 5 range hits specifically. So you gotta try and keep that in mind when your HP is this low. The Tick Eat timing is pretty simple. You just click the Sweet as soon as she starts shooting the thing towards you. It'll make a loud noise as well, so it's very, very easy to time. Once you get the red phase, you're now going to start out healing the zap damage. So you just pray magic, and you will just out heal the zap damage she's going to eventually do every now and then. Make sure you obviously dodge those range hits, as they can instantly one-shot you. But what's important here to leave, try and hit the crabs and leave them around 20% health, 15% health. And if you understand the idea of 5-ticking, what you can do is hit Berserk 3 times with the scythe, and then on the 4th one, where you would normally skip a hit, you hit the crab instead to save that tick that you would lose normally. This is possible because obviously you're far enough away from Berserk where the projectile won't hit you instantly, so you can actually dodge it even if you're 5-ticking the crab. It's also very important here to try and flick as much as possible. You might be really low in prayer, so try and flick as much as you possibly can here, and just use your claw specs to try and get past this phase as quick as possible. Once you get to P3, it's pretty much just a normal fight. There's not much difference. It's just that you obviously are tanking every time. And the idea is that you have to try and not lose too many ticks here. Try and get the maximum amount of hits at all times. Try not to get meleeed, of course, and all that stuff. A neat little trick you can do is to, before the web phase, you can try and drag her away from the web phase, far away in the corner, so you can actually sweet once or twice for free. Because you're actually going to run out of stamina if you don't. You need to sweet every now and then. Obviously, you're going to sweet on the yellow. And anytime you have any sort of downtime, you want to try and use your sweets so you can get some energy back, because you're going to run out if you don't. When the green bomb comes, there's a couple of ways to deal with it. One is just to simply brew up and tank it, which is fine. If you have like 5 brews, you can do that, no problem at all. Another way is to use a locator orb, where you can actually tick it by putting yourself to 1 HP, or well, under 19 HP, and then proccing your redemption at the same tick as it hits you. This is a little bit scary to do, as if you fail it, you instantly wipe, but it's extremely powerful as it uses, you almost use no supplies. You can pretty much do Verzik without any brews if you do this method. But it's not necessary for completions, so I would just recommend brewing up instead. I would highly recommend practicing this in entry mode though, and you want to make sure that you are indeed 1 HP. It's a little bit better if you're 1 HP. If you are 10 HP and you do it, you're actually going to lose 9 HP essentially, because you're locator orbing yourself 9 HP away. So if you're 1 HP, you locator orb yourself at 0, but you'll still proc the redemption, therefore gaining more health. So it's ideal to do this at 0 or at 1 HP if possible. Another method to deal with the bomb is try to keep your HP around 75 to 83, as if you're in that HP range, when it hits you and you have redemption on, it'll actually heal you a little bit. Obviously it'll drain your prayer, but it's generally speaking worth it if you can do that. After the bomb, always immediately brew twice and then get back to super combating and get back into the cycle. It's very nice having a lot of brews, so you can just kind of like brute force the ending a little bit, because the ending is a little bit hectic and it's very hard to like try and set all these things up with the green ball while the tornado is flying after you. Again, try and sweet wet every time she's going into web phase, and make sure you're doing constant DPS, and usually you'll kill her around the second, a bit after the second web phase is pretty standard to kill the boss. And that should cover most of it. Thank you all for watching, and I wish you all very best of luck on your solo Tobs. If there's ever any questions you want to ask, feel free to ask in the comments or come check my stream out. I am always doing these runs, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have anything. Shoutouts to Flash for allowing me to record some clips while he was doing a solo, so I could get some nice cinematic footage.